Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Take the Initiative. I'm Rebel Trader. Today we've got a meta report breaking down the current meta as of August 2024. This is the first one of these I'm doing for Shadows of the Galaxy, so it's going to be pretty fun. We're just coming off a big weekend of 3 big tournaments at Gen Con, and we've also had several other tournaments so far. So the Shadows meta really is taking shape, and we have a decent amount of data to dig into. So first, I want to start off by saying that this video is not like a tier list. It's not going to tell you what I think the best deck is. It's going to be more of a descriptive, here's what is being played, and what the top players seem to think is good. And it will have deck lists, so you will be able to net deck, but I will include multiple deck lists for each deck. So you at least have to make some kind of choice in your net decking. So let's get started. So this is a spreadsheet gathered by the K-Mitch, which has a list of like all the major events that have been played so far in the since the Shadows of the Galaxy release, and basically what decks are doing well. You can see down here, what is winning everything, what's coming second, top 4, top 8. And you also can see the number of players for each event. So we've, the Gen Con events have been our biggest one so far. We also had 77-person German nationals. So very, very interesting. Lots of things to dig into. So let's get started. Oh, this is also comes from a spreadsheet maintained by myself that primarily with help from the community, that lists everyone from all 3 days of Gen Con that went 5 and 2 or better, because we basically tried to use on the ground sources to figure out who was playing what, and we got reasonably close. We're missing, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, I think. So up here is day 1, then there's day 2 and day 3, and I'll link the spreadsheet in the description, and I'll also link another spreadsheet that is maintained by Cody Cressman, I believe, that has actually deck lists and not just pairings, because he got people to submit a form that had their deck list. So we'll go over a lot of the ones that did well today in this video, but if you want to find more, go take a look at that in the description. So here's the first part of the meta, and it's basically decks that existed in Spark Rebellion that still exist today. Boba, primarily with yellow now. Boba Green has sort of fallen by the wayside. It's there, gone, but not forgotten. But it hasn't been seeing as much play as the yellow ones. Sabine, still primarily green, but also a little bit of yellow. Not as much red. There wasn't a ton of red that did well in Spark Rebellion, and there's not a ton right now, but it's still a deck that's out there. And then I've replaced Krennic/Iden with Kira. She seems to be the spiritual successor to all those leaders. I think she is basically just better than them all the time. There are some scenarios where you might want Krennic or Iden, but I think Kira is usually just better. It seems to be the conclusion that most, but not all, people are coming to. So she's just kind of there to represent that, lower scale blue-green villain control deck. And then there's also Palpatine, which he is sort of the main, harder control deck list. I don't know if I classify him as fully hard control, but he seems to be the biggest control deck that's out there. And right now, the biggest version of him that's being played is mono green. There are a couple yellow, red, and even a couple blue. I don't think there's actually been a ton of blue that's actually been played at competitive events, but it's still out there. And then we have the new kids on the block. I've put Han there. Han also did exist in set 1, but the way I formatted this, there just wasn't enough room to put him on the last one. But there is a new Han deck that didn't really exist in Spark Rebellion, and that's the mono Han deck. And theoretically, you could have played it, but it's really gotten new popularity because of the DJ Tech combo. And that's sort of why I also put him on the new kids on the block thing, because the green version also usually plays the DJ Tech combo. So we'll go over that, but that's just a combo that allows you to deploy DJ with Smuggle early because of tech, and then use Han to destroy the resource that you stole with DJ. So basically just deramp your opponent. There's also the new Han Solo, who's been played in all sorts of colors and done well at all sorts of events, who's just, Value Town with his ability to let you play units out earlier. You also have Rey, who is sort of filling the spot that Chirrut did, mostly in blue-red hero, but also maybe a bit of blue-green. We'll get into that later. And you also have Bosk, who is sort of another character that you can play in a lot of different shells. So it's really cool to see that, these are I would classify as like sort of the top 8 decks right now, but they're not like the only thing in the meta, and they all can be, a lot of these can be played with several different variations. There's also these like rogue decks. I put Afra there because of my personal fondness for her. She doesn't really have any tournament results. But she's good. She represents like sort of the other like yellow hard control decks. Hondo actually did really well at Gen Con, mostly by like one player, but he's just a really good deck. He's a force. I think people should be paying more attention to Hondo. Kylo, there was a Kylo deck that did well at Gen Con. I don't know if there's been like a ton of others that have done well, but he's out there. He's a threat. And then Tarkin mainly played with yellow in the new Triple Dark Raid card to just win games when you shouldn't. And there's all sorts of other rogue decks out there too. So the meta is really wide open, right? There's so many things that can be played and can do well. So yeah. So let's get started going over the decks. We'll start with like the boring ones. This is Boba Yellow. It's existed since Spark Rebellion, and it's just it's really good. You play like the yellow stuff. Crafty Smuggler, Boba Fett, Bodhi Rook. Some builds are playing the new Lurking TIE Phantom. There's just lots of good like yellow cards. You don't really need to go into another color. You can just sort of play the yellow cards, and you get access to really powerful double aspect cards like Cunning, like we talked about Bodhi, Cantina Bouncer. Cunning really is the big one though. It just does so much. That +4 boost can steal games. The discard part is can be part of a good hand control strategy. And then you also have one of the more broken cards in the game, Fett's Fire Spray. And you also have like combos with it, like a New Adventure, the new double yellow card from Shadows of the Galaxy. You reset it and play it again. So there's just all sorts of crazy things that this deck can do, and it did get a lot from the new set. So here's some deck lists. We have up here, this was Bobby Colgrove's deck from Gen Con. Day 3, he went 7-0 with it, took down the whole thing. You can see that, there's some interesting, discrepancies between it and the other two decks. This one down here is from Bobby Sapphire, and I think a couple other people from KTOD. I think this was, someone went 6-1 with this. It wasn't Bobby Sapphire. I think it was Reflex that went 6-1 with this. Or I'm not sure, but someone at some point from KTOD went 6-1 at Gen Con with this deck. You can check in the spreadsheet to verify who it is. And then this one, a 1K local to me. You can see that streamed on the channel. His run through the finals. So there's lots of differences like between all these decks. So like this one, that one Gen Con has got 2 New Adventures main deck. I don't think anyone else has it main decked. Or even in the sideboard, it looks like 3 Lurking TIE Phantoms in the side deck from this one, none at all from the KTOD version, and like a 1-on-1 split here. Looks like both the Portland one and the KTOD one are running Zux and Forlom in the sideboard, whereas the Gen Con winner opted to put them in the main. So there's lots of different ways you can build this deck, but the core is basically the same. They're all running 3 Fire Spray, 3 Cunning, and a bunch of like lower value stuff. They're all in Mercenary Gunships, which I think is really interesting. The card is really underrated right now. But let's move on. This is Sabine, another deck that existed in Spark Rebellion, but I got so much new stuff from the new set. Wrecker, Poe are just really good, like high-end cards. Poe can hit for 8 to the base. Wrecker can do overwhelm, and you can timely intervention him out or ECL him out to get that overwhelm damage to win the game. Darksaber is just another great way to like steal games. Sometimes you just play it on your Sabine and they have no way to deal with it, and then you just win. Cassian is just another really good 3-drop card that can also be smuggled for 5 and come out and win you games out of nowhere. It's just that the deck got so much better from the new set. It's pretty much the best aggro deck. One of the only aggro decks that is like super playable right now. I think if you really want to be like aggressive, play it. You can also like, it used to be like more of a budget deck, but now with Poe, Darksaber, and Wrecker, it's a bit more expensive. But let's take a look at some lists. This one up in the top came first at a I think 30 player ish British tournament. As far as I can tell, like the list, the source that I got it from did not have a sideboard attached to it, so sorry for that. But these other two do. This one was played by Justin from KTOD and went 6-1 at Gen Con, I think day 2. This is from You Can Call Me Al, who won the Take the Initiative online league. So there's decks being played all over, and it's there's some interesting discrepancies in it. Like you can see this one from the Cantina Royale tournament is on 2 Po, 2 Darksaber main deck, no wreckers. The other two are both on 3 Po, 3 wrecker. The KTOD one is on 3 Darksaber. You Can Call Me Al is only on 1, but he's got 2 more in the sideboard. Let's see what else. Oh, Grey Squadron Y-Wing on Al's list and in the Cantina Royale list, but not in the KTOD list. KTOD list, it looks like, is on Bright Hopes. None of the others are on Bright Hopes. It's also the Gen Con winner, or not Gen Con, the Cantina Royale list is on Sundari Peacekeepers. Looks like neither of the other lists are on that. There's lots of ways you can build this deck, but it's the core of it is basic. You're just playing your low cost units and dealing damage, and then using your big stuff to win the game in the end. So there's lots of ways you can build these. Have fun with that. There's also like this yellow version of the deck, which has not gotten a ton of play, at least compared to the green one, but it's still out there and it's good. Typically tends to not run as many of the high-end cards. Like none of these lists are on Poe at all, or Wrecker, because they're not in ECL. So this is Malthy Elkin's deck that went 5-2 at Gen Con. It looks like someone took... Oh, no, it's not quite card for card, but they're very similar. But this one over here got top 8 at one of the British events. I can't remember which one of it. There were 2 big ones over the weekend. And I think this got top 8 at one of them. This one went 5-2 at Gen Con, and this one by Rebel Resource, who's played this version of Sabine pretty much more than anyone else, went 6-1 at Gen Con. I think he also went 5-2 on a different day. So he's very experienced to being a yellow player, and he has some results now to show it at the Gen Con tournament. The yellow version, in my opinion, is not as good as the green one, but there are real arguments to playing it instead of the green one. So take a look, build it for yourself, and yeah. So let's move on to the blue-green villain control deck. I think Kira is pretty much the representative of this now. It's been like underplayed compared to like a lot of other decks, which I think is ridiculous because she's really, really good. And just this shell in general is really, really good. But yeah, I mean, the core of it is, basically, survive in the early game, ramp, stabilize with cards like Vader, and then win with cards like Avenger. Kira gives it so many new tools, being able to flip on turn 5 and deal damage to a lot of stuff on the board, especially when combined with an overwhelming barrage. You can really like clear board states up quickly with her. Krennic or Iden could not do that in set 1, so that's like something new and interesting. Her shield ability also lets you do like crazy things sometimes. Like you can give a shield to a Pike Sentinel, which can block 2 attacks. Then you can give it to an Avenger, which means like a lot of decks aren't going to be able to deal with the Avenger because they can't deal damage to it. She can even just like shield up a Vader to have him hit for 5 without dying again. So she's pretty crazy. Krennic and Iden still do exist, and they still are getting results. You can see in the Gen Con standings below, but all the lists that I have for you today are with Kira. And there are a couple different ways to build her. So this one up here is from Wu, who went 7-0 on Gen Con day 2. Really just great solid list all around. This one is from one of the British events that got top 8 by Woji, who also made top 8 with it in our online league. Not this exact list, but something similar. You can find some of those games on our channel. And then this one is interesting. It's not running Energy Conversion Lab. It's on instead a 30 health base. And it's like more of a hard control deck. It's running things like Entrenched. It's running 2 Super Laser Blast main deck as opposed to 1. It's not utilizing the ECL, but it's still it's a really interesting way of building the deck. There was also a version that went, I think, 6-1 at Gen Con that was running Krennic in this shell with the 30 HP base. So you don't have to run ECL. In fact, there are matchups where you really want that 5 extra health, and the ECL just isn't doing much for you. This deck is also on Childson, which it looks like neither the ECL builds are on. Let's see. They're all pretty much running like the same Star Destroyer suite. 2 Avenger, 1 Relentless, 1 Devastator. Wu's got the other 2 big ones in the sideboard. The one from the British event is actually only on 2 Avenger, 1 Relentless, nothing else in the sideboard. The 30 HP one is on the same suite from Wu's list. So yeah, this is personally my favorite deck right now. If I were to go to like a big tournament tomorrow, I would probably be bringing Kira, probably with ECL, because I haven't tested enough of the 30 HP version, but maybe there's an argument there. Build whichever's your favorite, and let me know what you find. Now, this is Palpatine. And I have like the mono green stuff here because that's sort of been the biggest way that he's been played. I haven't been able to find lists for like the other colors of him, even though they have been doing well. I think there was a Palp red and a Palp yellow that went 5 and 2 or better at Gen Con. So they're out there. I don't know if there's a blue one that's had a result, but that's that was a classic from set 1. But the green version just utilizes things like command, of Enterprising Lackeys, which is a really interesting card. That can just recur over and over again to give you that continuous advantage. And you also have, Emperor's Royal Guard just coming in as a 3/5 is, one of the stronger 3-cost units in the game, especially if it has Sentinel. And then you just, have your, Relentless and Devastators as the high end. So these are some of the lists. This one got first at the Iowa 1K, the same weekend as the Portland one. Early on in the tournament. I think the guy who built this has updated it since, so you might want to take a look at that if you can find it. I believe I just got this from the DB, so you should be able to find it somewhere on there. This one down here got second at both like day 1 and day 2 of SCG Baltimore, which they ran a 1K, a 2K, and then another 1K, and this one got second at both of them. It's interestingly it's on tech. Which the other 2 lists it looks like aren't. Both the lists we talked about so far on 2 Enterprising Lackeys, 3 command. The one down here is from Kotal, and he is playing this currently in the ongoing Top Cut of TTI League Season 5. Get ready for some games. I think we've got one that's going to be streamed soon, so get ready for that. And he's also on Cobb Vanth. So very interesting. Lots of different ways you can build these decks. And this is Han, and I've put like it's sort of a cross between yellow and green. They're both versions are being played right now, and they're both really good. But like I was saying earlier, it really got a lot from Shadows of the Galaxy because of the Tech DJ combo, which means you can basically steal resources from your opponent, then destroy them. You also got Kira, who's another hand control card. So you can really play, especially with the mono version where you get Bodhi also and Cunning, you can really play like a hand control game and keep your opponent off of both resources and cards, and just have your big top end like Han. The mono version really can't go much bigger than Han, but the green version can play bigger stuff. So if you're looking for like more of a good long game, then you want, I think, to go with the green one. And I think if you want to win quickly, you're going to go with the yellow one. But this is the green one. Up here we have a second place deck from the Portland 1K. You can see the stream of that on our channel again from Guardian Games. And this one won the first Baltimore 1K. The video of the finals of that is on YouTube. I know, playing against the Pop deck we talked about earlier. Running a lot of green and yellow value stuff. Looks like the one from Portland is only on 2 Tech 2 DJ. The Baltimore one is on 3 Tech 3 DJ. So this also one from TTI League Season 5, 3 DJ and 3 Tech. This is by Jonah Nicholas, who is again the tournament hasn't actually started yet, but it will start soon. We'll see where Jonah goes with this, but he's playing this green Han deck. And you've got your other high-end cards like Ewing Reinforcement Home 1 and Reinforcement Walker. And it looks like Alex from Portland up here is running the 1 Luke Skywalker, which is like a 9-cost card. But for the purposes of Ewing Reinforcement, it's a 7, so it can come down early. Tech also lets you go into the late game and play things out of your resource row. So yeah, this is just a really interesting deck. Really just good all around value. It can go long. It can also win early. Really, really good all around deck. And this is the mono yellow version. So up here we have this one from Gen Con, which went 7-0 on day 1 and 6-1 on day 2. Then down here we have this one from Ian Lego Pizza, who went this version came first at the Baltimore 2K and then again first at the Baltimore 1K. And then this one over here is by the same pilot who brought it to Gen Con. It's a slightly different version, but he ended up going. Did he go 6-1? I think he went 6-1 or 5-2 on day 3 at Gen Con. And you can figure out the answer to that by going to the description and looking at the spreadsheet. So like there are like differences between these lists. Like this one over here, if you just look at the 2 by Lego Pizza, he is on like a lot more Rebels. And he's trying to be more aggressive. He's got the Hotshot DL44s, Fleet Lieutenants, Wing Leaders. He is still on 3 Tech, 3 DJ. Whereas like over here, it seems like he is leaning more towards like a trolley game rather than an aggressive one. Up here is this one is running like a bunch of utility cards, and it seems like it's more going for the long game. He's got Gamorrean Guards, Jetpack, L3. Carousel Turncoat is interesting. Seems like it kind of runs counter to the deck's plan. He's also on main deck Change of Heart, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, let's move on. This is the Newan, and like I said, again, it's sort of split. There's a lot of people running blue, a lot of people running green. There's even some people running red. There was a list from top 8 of the Portland 1K that was on Han Red. Unfortunately, I don't have that list. I know a lot of you wanted to see it, but I just don't have it. So yeah, this like the green version gets to play things like Maz Kanata and just spam things. Both versions are running this Heroic Renegade card, which is really like basically a 4/1 that you can play on turn 1 with Han and really start pushing damage. And you can also go into the late game playing things like Luke Skywalker's in the blue version, Crate Dragons in the green version, or I guess in both versions. You can play things like Reinforced Walkers in the green. But some of the green decks aren't even running that much top end, and they're just basically just spamming units out, trying to be an aggro deck. So let's take a look at some lists. I've got 2 blue, 1 green for you. This one went 6-1, I believe, at Gen Con day 3, and this one went 5-2. Both running, very similar suites. This one up here running Mace Windows. This one down here is on a 1 of Wrecker. This one up here is on 2 Poe. This one's on 3. Also 3 Obi-Wan, 2 Obi-Wan. Yeah, but like, and a lot of the early game cards are the same. Like you're running Force Throws, A-Wing, Sabines, Yoda, Cassian, Tech. Tech also helps you go into the long game. And they're both on that, Crate Dragons. Chewbacca is a really interesting one that people don't really talk about much, but he's a really good card. And this one is the green version that's being played by Sip in the current season of TTI League, Top Cut. And he's on the Maz plan, trying to pump up that Maz, and he's not going, any bigger than Wrecker and the Gorilla Attack Pod. So, no Crate Dragons and stuff. He's got 3 home ones in the sideboard. That's as far as he goes. Just trying to win early, and this deck you can spam a lot of things out and really start pushing that damage. So yeah, lots of different ways to build this deck. I wish I could have like a version of the Green Han that actually played more high-end cards, but we don't have one that's done well at event yet. So if you want to build that, go for it. Maybe you can be featured on the next meta report. We also have Rey here. And Rey, typically you run a bunch of lower cost things that can be pumped up by her, like this Moisture Farmer, R2D2, Queel, things like that. Red is the most popular version of her, so you're getting to run Force Throw, Pillage in that, and also Crate Dragon for the top end. There are like other versions, like there's a green version, which I'll show you a list for that, and there's also a mono blue version, which is out there. So here's some lists. These are 2 red, 1 green. The green one is from On Demand, who made top 8 of TTI League last season, running things like Ewing reinforcements, Luke's. Kylo is interesting here. You can pull him off Ewing reinforcement, but he does cost 8 normally, which does kind of suck. And then you're also on home ones, redemptions. He's got 2 Crate Dragons in the sideboard, which would come in for 11. Really, really interesting deck. You're getting to run things like Rose as well because of ECL. Theoretically, you could run Rose in the red version, but it doesn't make sense without ECL. Modded Cohort is also really interesting to use with Ray because you can bump her into a 3/5. You're also on Tech, which can also be buffed by Ray. Sindari Peacekeepers, really interesting green stuff that you can play with her. But the red version has been what is more popular. We have up here Grand Lotus, who made the top 4 of the TTI League with this build. That's running Luke's Redemptions, Kylo's for top end, Poe's as well. He's on 3 Pillage main deck. He's also got 2 Crate Dragons on the sideboard. Not the main, interestingly enough. We also have this one down here, which came second at, I believe, the Cantina Royale tournament in England. And he was not running Crate Dragons at all. So you can play this deck like more low to the ground, just like a typical hand control deck, playing things like Pillage and Force Throw to keep your opponent off cards. Poe also lets you discard cards, and then you're just winning with your red blue value stuff. Just really interesting, solid list all around. If you want something that is not too hard to understand how to play, and can steal you some games, Ray is a good place to start. Then we have Bosk, who's a newer player on the scene from Shadows of the Galaxy. He works with bounties, and there's also a couple different ways to build him. You can build him as an aggro deck. You can also build him as more of a ramp deck. The green version has been the most popular one, and I think the ECL version out of that. There are some people that are playing Bosk with 30 HP bases also, and there are some people that are playing him in other colors, but the green stuff is just really, really good because you have this card, Bounty Hunter's Quarry, which is pretty much the best bounty in the game, I think. It's one of the only ones that is really worthwhile as you get a unit into play to help push the advantage, especially if you're flipping that twice off of Bosk's ability. It can be really, really good and really create board states that are hard to deal with. You've got Bounty Hunter stuff like Toro Calican, Jango Fetch. You got Punishing One to combo with when you defeat things that have bounties on it, you get to ready it. Really, really interesting. Jango Fett with Energy Conversion Lab is really, really good, especially if you're attacking into something with a bounty. So yeah, let's take a look at some lists. This one came second at SCG Baltimore Day 3, and it's more of a ramp version. He's on Resupplies, Super Laser Technicians, and 3 Price on Your Head. So 9 ramp cards. He's playing Crate Dragons, Palpatines, Vaders, Reinforcement Walkers. Really just trying to, it seems like trying to use the green version. He's also on the 30 HP base, so he's just trying to go into the long game, use Bosk as maybe a value thing. These other 2 are more aggressive. This one this one went 5-2 at Gen Con Day 3, piloted by Reflex from K2D. Also, I was told to mention that Chrono, who is one of the people that really built this deck, played a 60 card mirror match in one of the rounds at Day 3 Gen Con. So could have done a lot better, but they ended up running into each other. So a couple people were on this deck. It's really interesting. It's much lower to the ground, running Maul as its most expensive card, then Ruthless Raider. Really just trying to push the aggro. It is running Price on Your Head and Super Laser Tech for ramps, but no resupply. It looks like you're not really on the ramp game plan, even though you're running ramp cards. And then this one is even more aggro, not running any ramp at all. It's actually running the Black Chrysanthemum. Nobody else is running that. I think he's just called Chrysanthemum in this game, not Black Chrysanthemum. But this is just very, very low to the ground. This is not from a particular event. It's just by Thork. I couldn't find another list that did well in an event, so I just took this one from a good player who has a good reputation and a YouTube channel of his own. He's done a video breaking down this, and he also has like a more rampy version of the deck, but I had one up here, so yeah, go ahead. Bosk is really, really interesting to me. Yeah, go ahead and build it for yourself. And these are some of the rogue decks from earlier. I don't have an Afra list here because she hasn't done well in any events, but you can go watch my video on her if you want a rundown of why I think Afra is really good. She is sort of like, the meta is not favorable for her right now. I'll admit there are a lot of things that she just can't beat. Like Sabine is just really hard. Maybe there's probably a version of her out there that can beat Sabine, but I haven't found it yet. If I do, I think I would have some event results, but we'll see. So this is Hondo. It went I think 5-2 on 2 different days of Gen Con. It was, there's some of its matches on day 2 were streamed. So you can go watch those on Code Amarin's YouTube channel. Speaking of Code Amarin, he also went 5-2 at Gen Con, I think day 1, with this list here, the Tarkin deck. And this also is a Kylo deck that went 5-2 at Gen Con. These are really interesting deck lists. The Pirate deck, Hondo, is basically just using Smuggle as a way to get card advantage, and then playing essentially like a blue-green control deck. You've got like Snokes and Avengers on the sideboard to win games. You don't have a room for a lot of the like traditional stuff that blue-green villain plays because you're running all the Smuggle cards, but Smuggle cards do let you get some insane advantage, like Timely Intervention. To play unit buff it and then ambush with it is really, really good. Covert Strength, being able to come out of the resource row, give 2 experience tokens. It's really, really good. Being able to just play Smuggle cards early in the game and then get, buff Childson is really, really good also. So yeah, this is a really fun deck. I've played it myself a lot. It's really, really enjoyable. It can be a bit challenging to play because you got to manage basically 2 hands at one time, but it's really fun. This Kylo deck is very, very low to the ground, not running anything more expensive than 3 resources. You're just trying to play multiple units every turn and try to push damage. Get as many things on the board so your Kylo isn't debuffed by his own ability. You're running a decent amount of Smuggle cards so that you can keep putting pressure on your opponent even after they've run you out of cards or you've run yourself out of cards. It's really, really interesting. Can definitely steal games. Super fun, and you don't really need to run anything like expensive for it, because you can just win the game with all these cheap cards. And then this Tarkin deck is also really, really interesting. Basically, you're just most of the units are space units. I think actually there's a decent amount of ground units in this one, but traditionally like a lot of your heavy hitters are space units. And it looks like this one isn't even running the Triple Dark Raid, but traditionally this deck does run Triple Dark Raid. And some more expensive vehicles like ATSCs, Reinforcement Walkers, so you can pull them out of the deck and just hit your opponent for a bunch. But this deck also has the capability to play Lurking TIE Phantom, which is a nigh unkillable card, and if you buff it up with Tarkin, it quickly becomes like very, very unkillable and can definitely steal games. You can also buff it up with things like TIE Advanced or Outland TIE Fighter, push it out of the range and make an opening, and just be able to hit your opponent for a bunch. Really, really interesting deck by Code Amarin here, and it looks like it's sort of a weird version because it's not running the Triple Dark Raids. If you want a version with the Triple Dark Raids, check out Voltors from Season 4 of the TTI League. Really, really interesting. Can definitely steal games. So where to next? There's lots of other things that I didn't even cover that I've done well at events. So there was a Bo-Katan deck that did I think went 5-2 on 2 different days at Gen Con. There's a Cad Bane deck that went 5-2 at Gen Con. I think there's a Kira Red that went 5-2 at Gen Con. Vader and Boba here are just there because I think they're really, really good and no one's played them yet. There's a really interesting yellow-green hero deck going around with the Boba that's just hasn't been getting as much press as I think it should. It's really, really interesting. Vader is still really good. He won a lot of events, especially later on in Spark Rebellion with green, also with blue. He's still out there. Dark Lord of the Sith. There's lots and lots and lots of things that have yet to be explored. It's very, very possible that the best deck in the format is not even on anyone's radar right now. So if you think you have it, go test it, go take it to an event, and go win with it, and you can be featured here on the next Meta Report. And just remember to always take the initiative. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you.